Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Thanks for being with us. Pat Gowan, one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch, is here. Welcome, Pat.
Hi, Kent.
And Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, is alongside. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, Kent.
Jim, Governor Quinn vetoed the smart grid legislation after the legislature approved it. He said it was going to be too costly for consumers. He didn't want the people of Illinois to have to foot the bill for smart grid. The legislature's now overridden his veto. Bottom line is, who are the winners, who are the losers now that all this is done?
Well, I guess ultimately we'll see how this plays out. In quite an interesting turn for the first time in recent memory, both the Post-Dispatch and the Telegraph editorialized the same day on the same subject with a very similar turn of words about this particular issue. In the past, when Commonwealth Edison, which serves the northern part of the state, or now Ameren, Illinois, wanted a rate increase, they had to go before the state. They had to go through CUB and ICC and basically negotiate with the legislature on what their rate was going to be. This smart grid, so-called smart grid bill, will basically guarantee Ameren a 10% return on their investment by statute, and will guarantee them rate increases for 10 years. The first 2 years, I think it's a 2.5% cap on the amount the rates can go up the first 2 years, and after that there are no caps. No less than the state attorney general, Lisa Madigan, had a real problem with this bill, saying that it was bad for consumers, that it basically shackles CUB, Consumers Utility Board, and the legislature just basically wrote Ameren a blank check. In a time when Ameren is making record profits, I also may point out. I guess the concern that we, the Telegraph's editorial board, and obviously the Post-Dispatch had the same almost word-for-word sentence, is when this bill was vetoed by Governor Quinn, the lobbyists in Springfield kicked into high gear, and in the time from the time the veto pen went no from Governor Quinn until the bill was overridden by the Congress, Ameren and ComEd's lobbyists spent $1.3 million in campaign donations for some very influential members of the legislature in Springfield. Now, we all know, wink, wink, that a healthy donation to my campaign is not going to influence my decision or my vote one way or the other, but it sure is interesting that, again, the Attorney General thinks it's a bad bill. I've never seen a company, especially a company that's regulated by the government, guaranteed a return on their investment. Most private businesses, if you feel like you have to invest in a piece of equipment, you hope you figure out a business plan where you can pay yourself back. You invest in that capital, and hopefully you speed up the process, or you reduce man hours, or so on and so forth, and get a return on your investment. Ameren and ComEd have a guaranteed return on their investment. The IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, obviously was in favor of this legislation as well, because there's a claimed 2,500 new jobs statewide, 2,050 in Commonwealth Edison and 450 in Ameren. New jobs created to install these smart meters that will allow you to reduce your power consumption. My question there would be is, once every household has one of the meters, you wouldn't think to me you'd need those 2,500 people anymore. because they've got everybody covered. Yeah, okay, it may take 2,500 people to go door to door and house to house and install the meters, but once they're in, they're in. I think it smells. I think it probably, at one point in time, had some merit to urge some investment by Commonwealth Edison and by Ameren, but I don't see why we should be in the business of guaranteeing a profit for a publicly controlled, or for a utility that's controlled by the government, when everybody else has to play by a different set of rules. And I also have a real problem that it just takes all of the wind out of Cub. They basically have nothing to say for the next 10 years. Ameren and Commonwealth Edison can do pretty well what they want to.
Pat, the legislature overrode the governor's veto of the smart grid legislation. Who are the winners and losers now?
First, look at the business side of this thing. If I make widgets and I want to make more efficient widgets, and I decided to do that, I'm going to have to increase the price of the widgets and take the chance that my customers won't buy as many. Nothing prevents me from doing that. Utilities are regulated because customers have no choice. They've got to buy electricity from somebody. You got one company, so if that's the company that sells electricity, that's who you got to buy it from. So on that side of it, you've got the utilities saying we can invest in better technology and smarter technology and more energy efficient technology that might save money in the long run, but we're not guaranteed a return on the investment. We're coming to you and asking for a return on the investment. That much makes perfectly good sense to me. If they'd gone to the Illinois Commerce Commission, which exists to vet rate increases and to vote on them and to have regulatory power over this, in which the best of my knowledge does not accept campaign contributions directly from the utilities, this would make a whole lot better sense to me, but they didn't. We effectively have the General Assembly operating as though it were the Illinois Commerce Commission, and as Jim says, wiring the Citizens Utility Board out of the picture entirely, the advocacy organization for consumers. Under these circumstances, it appears that we can save the money we're investing in the Illinois Commerce Commission. We don't need it anymore. The utilities can just go directly to the legislature and bargain for that if that's what we as taxpayers want. I have the same concerns that Jim has, same the concerns the editorial pages have about what this is going to do with rates. Pat Quinn vetoed this thing. They overrode his veto. You can like Pat Quinn, you can hate Pat Quinn, but Pat Quinn was a lot of the wind in the sails of creating the Citizens Utility Board. And historically, consumers, especially utility consumers, have had no better friend in government than Pat Quinn. And if he thinks it's a bad deal, it's worth sitting up and paying attention to.
We need to take a break. We'll have more Metro Talk right after this.
Hi, I'm Audrey Lucchese, and I'm from Alton, Illinois. I love music, and that's why I came to Lewis & Clark. It's been an amazing experience here at Lewis & Clark, working with students that are so talented, coming from all over the area, and they work so hard to follow their dreams. The music faculty at Lewis & Clark they're fantastic, and they're there every step of the way to push you to follow your dreams. One of the unique opportunities that I have had at Lewis & Clark is being able to record my own music with a fellow student here. Being able to record our music has opened doors for us in the music industry. My long-term goal is to finish here at Lewis & Clark and then to transfer to a four-year school and finish my degree in music performance. I would recommend Lewis & Clark to another student because it is definitely a great place to get started and it can open so many doors for you.
Big dreams and good grades aren't enough to get into college. There are actual steps you need to take. Finding someone who can help is the first and most important. For the next steps, go to knowhowtogo.org.
Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Jim Schrader and Pat Gowan are here. Pat, former Representative Tom Holbrook has resigned from his position in the Illinois House. He's now going to work for the Illinois Pollution Control Board at an annual salary of $117,000. That's an appointment by the governor. You have any concerns about the fact that he resigned from his post and was immediately appointed to the Pollution Control Board?
Well, it's not like this has not happened before. It's a fairly common approach to running government. Holbrook had been on the Energy and Environmental Committee. I don't know how good his credentials are to run the Illinois Pollution Control Board, but my guess is that they're about as good as anybody else's that the governor was likely to appoint. Remember, this is a governor who, after all, appointed as director of the Illinois State Police a gentleman who had never in his life been a police officer. So I'm not sure that, although he'd never been a legislator either, so that may even it out. So this is not a surprise. Holbrook, base pay for legislators is about $67,000 a year. He'd have been paid more with committee assignments and so forth, I think. But so it's a $40,000 or $50,000 a year pay bump for Holbrook, who's gone out of his way to say, look, this isn't under the old pension system where I get an immediate bump. And he may not get an immediate bump, but Holbrook turned 61 years old this year. We know that Quinn's going to be in office for 3 more years and possibly, who knows, 7 more years. So if Holbrook and Quinn continue to get along and Quinn continues to get elected, Holbrook could have a job that pays pretty well through age 68. That's got to help his pension along. So it's a good deal for Holbrook. And I hope it's a good deal for the state, but we don't know much about the people that the governor appoints to these jobs anyway, and the proof will be in what gets done. And who knows, maybe the General Assembly will start regulating pollution issues directly, like it did with the utilities, and we won't need the Illinois Pollution Control Board anymore, and we can set it up on a shelf beside the Illinois Commerce Commission.
You optimist. Jim, any concerns about the fact that former Representative Holbrook is now going to work for the Illinois Pollution Control Board?
Well, Tom has been a good Democratic soldier for a lot of years. And as Pat points out, this is absolutely a political appointment. It's not as if Representative Holbrook is a chemical engineer or an air pollution specialist. I don't know what his background is, his educational background is, but I somehow doubt that he has studied pollutants or the effects of acid rain or anything like that. But it's a very nice appointment for him. It will have a handsome effect, as Pat points out, on his on his pension in a few years. You know, the downside is that he serves at the pleasure of the governor. So in theory, were he to get crosswise with Governor Quinn, he could be unappointed. Or if Governor Quinn is not reelected at the end of 3 years, Representative Holbrook could be out of a job or looking to run for reelection or going into a private consultation or something like that. It's a nice reward for him. I don't know about you guys, but I certainly could embrace a $50,000 raise or $40,000 or $50,000 raise. I'm sure I could learn to live on that extra money. So good for him. It's a reward for a good soldier. And now we look at one more district in southwestern Illinois that's going to be looking for candidates to fulfill or to run in the next election. Someone will be appointed to fulfill Representative Holbrook's position, our time in office, which is another 14 months, 13 months, something like that. And then we'll see what the candidates shake out, or how many candidates shake out to run for the position.
I need to make a correction, by the way. I think I said Holbrook was going to be 61. He's going to be 62. I've reconsidered my position in light of that, and I don't think it changes anything.
But never let it be said that Pat Gowan made a numerical mistake.
There you go.
I looked down at my notes, you know.
That resignation does bring up a whole other issue, though, as Jim was alluding to, Pat, and that is that now that Representative Holbrook has resigned from his representative seat, former Representative Jay Hoffman, who had announced that he was going to run for Congress, is now saying, changed my mind, I'm going to go after Representative Holbrook's seat. Any concerns about that?
Oh, I don't know about concerns. It's a confusing situation. First, you see, we've got State Rep Hoffman, who I believe had served 19 years, gets beat by Dwight Kay in the last election. Is rather surprisingly out of the General Assembly. He'd been, I think, well regarded. Had been involved Transportation Committee. I think he'd done a lot of good things for Metro East. He's out of a job. He decides he's going to run against for Congress against Tim Johnson, who's Republican from Champaign. Then Costello, out of the blue, announces he's not going to run, and people are thinking, well, golly, will he switch to a district that is closer to his own home? Will he run for that? And then that opportunity is still kind of twittering when Holbrook takes the appointment to Pollution Control Board, and that opens up another possibility. And it looks like Jay Hoffman has settled on trying to go back to his old home in the Illinois House by running for Holbrook's seat. I think he'll be a very strong contender for it. It is a small example of something that has bothered me, but it's on such a small scale, this one doesn't bother me a lot, about people who can't quite decide what it is they want to be. In this case, he'd be a legislator one way or another, whether he was in Congress or whether he was in the House. He did run for Congress once before. People tend to forget. He lost to John Shimkus by such a narrow margin that I believe he didn't concede until the day before Shimkus was sworn in. It was a real close race. I'm a little more bothered by people who can't decide whether they want to be the governor or the senator, because the job skill sets for those jobs are so different. But a legislator is a legislator wherever he practices it, so this seems reasonable. My guess is that Hoffman will be a hard guy to beat in that district.
Jim, any concerns about the fact that former Representative Hoffman is switching gears and now moving from Congress to Representative Holbrook's seat?
Well, what has been interesting so far is to see the number of people that apparently are expressing interest in running for Jerry Costello's seat, and then cooler heads prevailing and saying, maybe not so much. Judge Ann Callis was floating that idea around. She announced yesterday on Monday that she likes it pretty well where she is, the Madison County Courthouse. Thank you very much, and I'll just stay right here. Jay Hoffman kind of floated that trial balloon, and now he's saying, well, wait a minute, maybe this state rep seat down here looks a little more attractive. It may be a little more low-hanging fruit. It's like Tony La Russa pulling double switches here, with people resigning early and getting plugged in, and now who's going to go where. And I think as it pertains to Tom Holbrook's seat, that Jay Hoffman will probably have an easier time for the voters in and around this area. They're going to remember the name. He did serve with esteem in Springfield. He's been gone for a couple of years. He's coming back. That's going to be much less wear and tear on him as far as fundraising goes, because for that congressional seat, you're going to have to raise a whole lot of money. There's going to be a lot more travel involved. There's going to be a whole lot more travel within the district, and a whole lot more babies you got to kiss and grandmas you got to hug to try to get that U.S. congressional seat. Do I blame Jay Hoffman? No, I think it's probably smart on his idea, or on his part, to try to go back to what he knows, which is go back as a representative in Springfield. We were talking off the air. By all indications, Speaker of the House Madigan got along pretty well with Jay Hoffman. It'd be like old home week if he's successful in getting elected to that seat.
I understand what really happens. He called the Democratic Party on the bullpen phone and said, I want to run for Holbrook's seat. And they said, Johnson? And he said, no, Holbrook's seat. And they said, oh, Costello. And he said, no, Holbrook's seat. So it took a while to get that sorted out.
That season's over now.
Okay.
We need to take a break. During the break, we'll see if we can get Pat a matching coat. We've got more after this.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the radio broadcasting program and WLCA with Mike Lemons.
Have you ever listened to your favorite radio station or your favorite disc jockey and say, you know, I could do that? Or maybe you're the type of person who says, I could never do something like that. Well, with the help of first-year Mass Comm student John, we're going to show you just how easy it is. Each voice intro starts with talking about the band that just played, and we add a station identifier. Next, you want to offer some information that may be of interest to your audience. And finally, tell the listeners what the next song is, who sings it, followed by another station identifier. John will do one live now.
Silver Sun Pickup substitution on WLCA. The Big Pink released their debut album called A Brief History of Love. The single is off that album. It's The Big Pink with Dominoes. It's on College Radio's Best 89.9.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
What's that? I don't know. Something I kind of made.
Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
Ow!
Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
Sounds like you could use some Van Gogurt. It's fortified with arts-rich nutrients to improve your math and reading skills. Catch!
Van Gogurt, thanks. So what's the deal with your ear?
Always with the ear, huh?
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
Welcome back to Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Jim Schrader and Pat Gowan are here. Jim, Illinois school test scores show that 80% of the districts in the state failed to meet the improvement goals under the No Child Left Behind Act. Do we have a serious problem, or has the bar been set too high?
And I have, no dog in this hunt, though my girlfriend is a substitute teacher right now because she's a displaced teacher. Maybe a little of both. For years, people were complaining about the dumbing down of America and students weren't learning. And, worldwide, the Koreans were advancing on the U.S. as far as engineers, and India and China and so forth were turning out all of these students. And Congress and then President Bush came up with the No Child Left Behind Act that was going to set basically bars for school systems to achieve. And now, many times, school districts are falling short of some of those. Some of the districts claim it's because of how the scores are counted or how you merge the student test scores. So proponents of the No Child Left Behind will say, well, it's lazy administrators, lazy teachers, people aren't teaching, they're dumbing down our kids. You have opponents of No Child Left Behind saying they're setting ridiculous standards and one size doesn't fit all. I suspect there's a little truth to both of those. But what I am against is one of the ideas that's now been floated in Illinois is just throwing out No Child Left Behind. Because if there was any validity to the fact that we weren't requiring enough of grade school and high school students, we were just passing them through to avoid social stigmatization of being a failure. If we didn't care whether they could read or write and we would still hand them a diploma and send them on their merry way, then there needs to be some form of measuring achievement. Is No Child Left Behind perfect? I'm sure it isn't. Do we have bad teachers and bad administrators? Sure, we do in some cases. But you can't paint with too broad a brush either way. But I don't think we revert back to not holding school districts, administrators, and teachers somewhat accountable.
Pat, 80% of the districts in the state are not meeting the standards they should be meeting according to the No Child Left Behind Act. Have we set the bar too high, or do we have a problem?
Junior high school coach wanted me to do 100 push-ups. I couldn't make it to 100 push-ups. He said too little arm strength. I said too many push-ups. Which one of us was right? It's kind of like that. I don't know. Like, a couple of thoughts. One is, yeah, we're measuring all this stuff. At the same time, we're in the worst economic crisis we've been in a lifetime, and maybe the second worst in the history of the country. So the class sizes are coming up. Teachers are being laid off by the thousands. Some districts can't afford even to replace the books. Internet connectivity becomes an issue, enough computers for kids. There are a million reasons I can give you why, while our expectations are increasing, our ability to meet them is going down. That's a part of it. Another part of it in my mind, and one I'm getting from a teacher who's very close to me, my wife, is a concern among educators, and she's very much involved in teacher training, is a concern among educators. The more pressure you put on schools, teachers, and administrators to do well on the test, you not only put pressure on them to cheat and lie, and there's been a little of that around the edges, supposedly, but the bigger concern is that the legitimate ones will teach to the test. If you want to incent good performance on the test, then we'll put all of our efforts into making sure our kids do well on the test, never mind whether they're really well educated at all. And that's not going to be a very good thing either. There are proposals out there to look at a whole different other solutions, like teachers, how the performance of the teacher students. That works really well because the teachers got them for 1 year, so they get 4 years or 5 years or 6 years of crap education, and then they get to this teacher who can't fix all of that in 1 year and gets blamed for it too. Or this teacher has a high percentage of learning disabled kids, or has a high percentage of English as second language kids. You can find a million ways in which you cannot balance all this out. I understand the purpose behind it. I think there ought to be methods put in place, but I thought No Child Left Behind was silly, and my shorthand for it was the expectation that by 2014, all American kids will be above average.
Jim, some lawmakers are trying to block the pension for former Governor Blagojevich. Should that happen? Will they be successful?
I don't know if they'll be successful or not. I personally take the attitude of a convicted felon with felonies committed in office should not be eligible for a pension.
Pension for Governor Blagojevich?
I think he forfeits upon sentencing. The question is what happens first, and it looks like they've got a mechanism that may prevent him from getting his $65,000 a year till then.
That's going to do it for this round of Metro Talk. Thanks for being with us. I'm Ken Scheffel. Jim Schrader, the publisher of The Telegraph, has been here, along with Pat Gowan from the Post-Dispatch. We'll see you next time.